Hi everyone, welcome to part 2 of the Fire Mountain Gems and Beads Secrets to Seed Beads. Now if you watched part 1, you got to learn how to make this great sun catcher. Now we're doing in part 2, we're going to build on this idea, which was ladder stitch and how to turn that into a quilling stitch. And our part 2 is going to use ladder stitch again, but we're going to add brick stitch and fringe to that ladder stitch. Are you excited? I hope you are, because I am. We're going to show you how to make these great earrings. Let's get started. Always starts with needle and thread. That's one of the big secrets of seed beading, I guess, is you have to have needle and thread. I like to use Fireline. This is my favorite. I'm using the smoke color. I find it disappears into the beads the best when you're using colored beads. Even though they're not really dark, they just sort of disappear in there really well. And it begins with the pattern. Here's my pattern that I created. And by the way, this graph paper is available at firemountaingems.com. And it's a free downloadable pattern. And you can ask for the brick stitch pattern or the loom pattern or any kind of pattern you want. This is brick stitch. The top part, this triangle, this is brick stitch. But the bottom, the fringe, I used a loom pattern. Notice this one's lined up like little bricks. And this one, they're just right on top of each other. There's a major difference. So I actually used 2 different kinds of graph paper and kind of merged them together. We're going to start off with this triangle. And it begins with the brick stitch. So I'm going to pick up a black and a blue bead. And again, I'm using the delicas because they are nice cylinder shapes, and I want these to lie side by side. This is ladder stitch again, and it's just a lot easier with a straight-sided bead. Yes, you can do it with round beads, but we're still beginners. We're only in episode 2, and so I want to make sure you can do it. So I've got these 2 beads. I'm going to go back through that first black bead and encourage these 2 beads to be side by side. Just going through the black bead. There we go. And there I have my seed beads side by side. That's supposed to represent the rung of a ladder. And now, before I start my next one, I'm going to go down through the blue one. And if you remember from looking at the pattern that I showed you briefly, the next bead is a blue bead. I've come out the bottom, so I'm going to go down through the top. But you must go through the hole. There we go. Through the top. Make them line up. This isn't going to be perfect. Don't try and be too perfect, because you'll make yourself crazy. Anything that is iffy looking, we can fix it later. Went back up through that blue bead so that I can add the next bead, which according to my pattern is a black bead. I'm going to go up through the bottom. Make them lie side by side. Back down through the top. Add the next bead, which according to my pattern is black. This one came out the bottom, so I'm going to go down through the top. To be able to add the next bead, I have to get to the end of the row, so I'm going to go back up through that last black bead. I'm trying to keep my tension nice and tight so my ladder stays all together. By the way, this is a very important pattern for seed bead Christmas ornaments. I didn't do any of those in this series, but I thought you might like to know that. Oh, yeah, secrets to seed beading. I'm supposed to give you little tips whenever I think of them. There we go. This one is a pink one, and I'm following the pattern. In fact, we're going to do 5 pinks in a row. And you can see this is the exact same sort of ladder stitch you did in the sun catcher, just smaller and 1 row deep. Oops. I have to go up to get to the end. Add another pink. And it's just a roundy sort of figure 80 design all the way down. Let's see, how many beads do I have in this? Oh yeah, there are 15 beads on the bottom row of this ladder stitch. And I think after you watched the first one and you've watched this one, I think you have the whole concept of ladder stitch. So let's skip ahead a little bit because I have another one that's closer to being done. I've already got all 15 beads on here according to my pattern. And I could also go back to my pattern and mark off that first row so that I can remember that I've marked it, that I've finished it. In fact, let's do that. So I've done all 15 of these. Oh, by the way, what I do for this, for marking things off, because I like to reuse my patterns, is I've put the pattern into a sheet protector, and then I've just marked on the plastic on the outside of the sheet protector, and when I want to use it again, I can just wipe it off with alcohol. So the next row is going to reduce by 1 bead. And believe it or not, even though you're reducing by 1 bead, you are going to add 2 beads. I'm going to pick up a black one and a blue one. And as you can see across the tops of these, I hope you can see across the tops, there are, I call them thread bridges between each of the beads. And we are going to go under bridge 2. There's 1, there's 2. We're going to go under 2. There it is. Pull that through. And I want these 2 beads to lay on top here between beads 15 and 14, I guess you'd say. So now I'm going to go back up through the turquoise bead, the one I just added. Have to go the right direction though. And when I pull that thread through, that's what makes it stand up on top between the beads I want. There. Now the hard part is this black one over here, it wants to go kind of wonky. We have 2 choices with this black one. We can fix it now, or we can fix it later after it's all stitched. I'm going to choose to fix it now by going down through the black one and tie it to that blue one, because the blue one is behaving. We want the black one to behave as well. So we'll just tie the 2 beads together so that they line up nice. And of course our objective is always to hide the thread. We want this to look magical. There we go. And following my pattern, my next bead will be a blue bead. And now it gets easy again. That was the hard part. That's the turnaround and the losing a bead. I'm going to go under the next bridge and up through the blue bead that you just added. We're going to be using more of this brick stitch. This is brick stitch in some later projects. So pay attention. Pull it tight and it lays right next to the others. Go again. The next color is blue again. I just glanced up at my pattern. Go under the next bridge. And up through the bead you just added. Catch it on your ring and pull the needle out. And they're all just lying right next to each other. It's small and it looks kind of daunting, but it's really not. It's just repetitive action once you've figured out how to do it. Next one on the pattern is a black bead under the bridge. up through the bead you just added. And the next color is black again. Under the bridge, up through the bead. Now there are going to be 14 seed beads across here. Let's cut away for a little bit. I'll finish that row and I'll show you how I do the turnaround. So here you see, I have completed the second row. I want to show you that turnaround again where we're going to lose one of the beads. Or not lose, we're going to reduce this by one bead. I turn it over in my hand because I happen to be right-handed, and I've marked off that row on the pattern. The next row will start with a black. And remember, when you're starting a new row, you're actually going to start off with 2 beads. So this is going to be 2 blacks this time. So I'll pick up 2 blacks, and I won't go through under the first bridge. I go under the second bridge. That's what makes it all come together. And I go up through the last bead on there, which is the one right here. Lay down and pay attention to me. Up through that one, pull it through, and again, this little bead here just wants to be a little bit wonky. So I'm going to go back down through it and tie it to the one that's behaving. So they'll both stand up nice and straight the way I want them. Ta-da! And then we're going to continue down the row the exact same way. The next bead is a blue bead. But like I showed you in the first row, you go under the next bridge, up through the bead the same direction you were going before, pull it tight, keep going all the way across. And every time you start a new row, you're going to reduce by 1 bead. You're creating a triangle. And here's what it looks like when you get to your triangle. So every time I've reduced by 1 bead, and I go up until I get down to just 2 beads at the top. Okay, so at the top of this triangle, I'm just going to add 6 black seed beads to make a loop. 6 black seed beads, and I came out of this hole at this bead right here, so I'm going to go down through this bead. And there is my loop with lots of extra thread from previous things I was doing. Go on, get out of there. You're not in this shot anymore. You're done. There we go. There's my little loop. And I like to go through the loop a few times for strength, because this is where your earring is hanging from. And admittedly, earrings are not heavy. They don't require a lot of strength, but sometimes you comb your hair and you catch your earring, you still don't want to break it. And under ordinary circumstances, I'd probably go through there about 3 or 4 times, but I'm not going to this time, so we can move on. Okay. Now at this point, I want my thread to be coming out this bottom bead here. So I'm just going to work my way down the side of the triangle. Now I corrected all those beads as we went down, but if for any reason you had missed one and there was still a wonky bead that was kind of sideways or crooked, this is a good time to fix it up. And I can probably do these more than one at a time, but it's up to you. Ooh, look at that. I got all of them. Look at that. Woo! That's amazing. Pull that all the way down. And now we can make our fringes. Fringes are fun. Again, I've got my pattern here. And see, my fringes have a pattern to them too. So I have to follow that pattern. The first one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 black beads. Here we go. So I'm coming out the bottom corner. I'm adding 15 black beads. Pull all these down. That's my first fringe, and I have to admit, when I made the earrings, I wish I'd made the fringes longer. They're a little bit short. They don't hang as nice as I want them to. So keep that in mind when you're making your pattern. You might want to make the fringes bigger, longer, or even put a weight on the end of them. Now, I'm going to go back through all these fringes, but I'm skipping that first bead. That is the bead that's going to stop them all. So skip that one, go back through all of the other ones. And back through that first bead in the corner. That one too. Go through all of those. And here you can pull your fringe really tight, but you know what? If you pull your fringe really tight like this, it's all kind of wonky and crooked and odd and weird, and it gets too tight. So be careful you don't get your beads too tight. Let them loosen up a little bit. Let them have some movement. And then you're going to go back down through the next bead. And again, don't pull it too tight, but you also don't want a lot of naked thread showing, so pull that down. And you can adjust a little bit. See, this looks a little too tight. It looks a little bit kinked. So I'm just going to give that bottom bead just a little bit of a pull. There we go. Let it be kind of loose and smooth and moving. And we add our next fringe. The next fringe is 1 blue, 1 black, 13 pinks, and another black. Okay, so I've added that fringe. I skip the bottom bead. Skip the bottom bead. Go back up through all of these. Back the same direction you came. And don't miss any. If you skip any, you'll have a weird look. And back up through that top bead. Pull that one up. There we go. Go down the next bead and prepare to do your next fringe. Now, when you get all of these fringes done, all the way across, we're going to go back up through that last fringe and come out here. And we end up with, in fact, you don't even have to go all the way up. An earring. Unless you're correcting something. You'll work your way all the way up on the side sometimes. If you have to correct some wonky beads, it's a good time to do it. Oh, I should tell you about weaving your pattern in. Now, let's pretend I did it. But basically, all you have to do is weave your thread back into your piece to finish up the piece. You're done. Just weave it in. Do some figure eights. Avoid having your thread show. I'll call it bead weaving or something. So you go in and out a few times, not catching up any other stray pieces of thread you've got. That was the first tail from the very first beginning of the piece. Let me get that tail out of the way. There we go. And when you feel you're secure enough, this is not going to come undone because you've gone through and around and about so many times. I advise not using a knot or any glue because if anybody ever has to repair your earrings, you have a tough time later on. And then I use my thread burner to take off that piece of thread. Dink. Ta-da! So there's your earring. All you have to do now is add the ear wire. I used a pink one, of course. Just put that, open up the loop like a jump ring, put it through your loop, and close it up again. One of the nice things about seed beading is that they're the same on front and back, so you don't even have to worry about which side you're showing off. And there you have it. A pair of seed bead earrings using fringe, ladder stitch, and brick stitch. Our next project is going to build on that again. And the next project is for seed bead number 3. Check that out. We're going to build on the techniques you've already learned. You've learned ladder stitch, fringe, and brick stitch. We're going to do some more of the fringe and some more of the ladder stitch. We're going to add the net stitch. Hope you can join me for episode 3 of the Secrets to Seed Beading. Thanks for joining me. My name is Rose. Happy beading.